The Michigan Man Podcast, episode 230. Merry Christmas. Will Michigan fans have to wait much longer for our coaching Christmas present? And should we be concerned with Michigan Hoops' shaky start? That and more on this week's show. This is the Michigan Man Podcast. On GBMW, Go Blue Michigan Wolverine. For Wolverine fans from coast to coast. Go Blue and Merry Christmas. I'm your host, Mike Fitzpatrick. I'm betting most Michigan fans would have liked to wake up on Christmas morning knowing we've received the perfect gift for this joyous season, a new head coach named Jim Harbaugh. Well, we'll probably have to wait until after next weekend for Jim to tell us which way he's going to go, so hang in there a bit longer. As you might guess, the topic of today's show is the search for our next head coach. Joining me on our Michigan Gameday segment this week is Michigan great Jon Jansen. Before we bring on Jon, let's get started with a few Wolverine News and Notes. We've been without a head coach since December 2nd. I know it feels like it's been longer than that, but it's just been 3 weeks. From the beginning, interim athletic director Jim Hackett has preached patience. He's talked about his swim lanes, his timeline, and the need to get this thing right. We all agree on that. It's just the waiting has led to growing speculation, crazy rumors, and plenty of reporters claiming they have sources close to the process who have the scoop. We have to expect that from the media during a search like this. This, after all, is a juicy story and also reassures us that Michigan is still relevant in the college football world. By this time next week, we might know if Jim Harbaugh is coming home. If he is not, then who's next? Has the search committee come up with candidates who are ready and willing to become the next head coach? Will Michigan fans be shattered if the next head coach is not named Harbaugh? So many questions and so very few answers as of right now. Most of us thought Michigan basketball would help take our minds off of all the football worries. Instead, now we're worried about Coach John Beilein's young team too. The good news is that Coach B has raised everyone's expectations when it comes to Michigan basketball. That's a good thing. The reality is that in a college basketball world of 1 or 2 years and done, it can be incredibly difficult to sustain a high level of success. Look at how our neighbors in East Lansing are struggling so far this year too. Sure, Duke and Kentucky have suffered big losses to the NBA since last season, but maybe not too many programs have been decimated like Michigan has. It's the price we pay for success. What we do know is this team is very young and they do have talent. Here's the hard part. It might take some patience this year. The Big Ten season gets underway next week, and then we'll get a better idea of how good this team might be or how far away they are from being an elite or even good team anytime soon. I'm betting on Coach B and his history of making his teams better, so either way, it will be an interesting team to watch this winter. Just in case you haven't had enough coaching search talk, we're going to give you another dose of that today. Michigan great Jon Jansen is up next here with me on the Michigan Man Podcast on GBMW, Go Blue, Michigan Wolverine. Joining us on our Michigan Game Day segment as we get ready for Christmas and a lot of other news we think in the next week, Michigan great Jon Jansen. Jon, thanks for taking the time.
Hey, thanks a lot for having me.
Well, Jon, the question on every Michigan fan's mind as we approach Christmas is, will Jim Harbaugh be coming home to Michigan? Do you still think the odds are pretty good in that favor?
Yeah, I think they are. I think, having been involved in some of the conversation, it sounds like that's the way he's leaning. But, it's a big decision for him and for Michigan, and Michigan knows what they want to do. But for him, it's going to be moving his family all the way from the West Coast, where they've been for the last 10 years, and moving them back to the Midwest. And for Jim, it's coming home, and that's great. But one of the things that when I was moving around in the NFL and when I retired, that nobody really notices is it's a lot harder on the families to move than it is for either the player or the coach. When the coach or the player moves to a new city, they're automatically put into a group of friends, a group of coworkers, and the families. They've got to pick up. They've got to switch schools. The wives have to come into a whole new set of friends, and it's a lot tougher on them. So that's the decision I think he's probably battling with right now.
Well, there were plenty of media stories out, and there have been no shortage of those, John, in the last couple of weeks, detailing how Jim was torn between the NFL and coming back to college ball, coming back to Michigan. As a player, you've experienced both levels of competition. Other than what you've just cited as very good reasons, can you give the listeners an idea just why this is such an agonizing decision for a competitor like Jim Harbaugh?
Well, when you say it like that, as a competitor, for Jim and for coaches, it's a lot different. The NFL and college coaching, and here's why. In college, it's 24/7 through 65, because whether you are coaching your own guys or trying to make sure that they're in class, or trying to put out any fires that these teenagers create, because we all know that teenagers are teenagers. And they're going to have fun. They're going to make some mistakes. Those are just the obvious ones. What's not obvious is all of the time that is spent in recruiting. You always got to look, next year, 2 years, 3 years down the road, and there's always a new batch of athletes. So that's the big difference. In the NFL, you don't necessarily have to do that recruiting, and there's times in the NFL where you have basically a month or 2 or 3 weeks where you're off, and you're not allowed to work out with your players. You're not allowed to have them in the building, especially with the new CBA. So there are a lot of things that are in place that make life and family life of an NFL coach a lot better than it would be in college. So I think that's one of the factors. And then when you talk about the competitor that Jim is, his brother has a Super Bowl championship. They met in the Super Bowl, and Jim lost. And I know that really burns him. He's got, in his division that he's in now, the Seahawks. That's been a tremendous competition for him, and a great rivalry. Now, if he doesn't stay with San Francisco, obviously that changes a little bit. But he was in the Super Bowl. He's been to 3 NFC Championship games and has yet to win a Super Bowl. So that is going to be one of the things that really tears at his heart.
Well, in the last week or so, John, last several weeks actually, we've heard several insider accounts of what Jim is thinking, and quoting sources close to the process, which we see that term a lot. If Jim isn't talking, and that's both Jims, Harbaugh and Hackett, where do you think all of this stuff comes from?
Well, I think it's just a lot of people trying to read into the situation, because both Harbaugh and Mr. Hackett aren't really talking about it. People are trying to draw conclusions from what they are saying, and they're trying to connect dots, and there's a lot of inferences and a lot of conjecture as to what's happening. And the worst I've even heard is that they're trying to read their faces and say, oh, well, when they talk about this, they look happy. When they talk about this, they look sad. These guys are grown adults, and they know probably better than anybody how to handle the situation. And I think they're doing a tremendous job of letting people talk and do whatever they want to, and say whatever they want to say. They know the real situation. Both Jims do. And they know how it's going to turn out. And let's face the facts. Jim Harbaugh is still under contract with a professional organization, so he can't come out and say, "Yeah, I'm leaving at the end of the year." He can't even say that I'm considering it, because that would be, it could be a breach of contract. And while there's a lot of different ways to get around contracts and get out of contracts, while he's in season, he owes it to his players not to be talking about what he might be doing next year. And he expects the same from his players. He's got guys that are free agents. They're not even under contract next year. And he would expect those guys not to be talking about what they're expecting in free agency or what's going on next year. They've got to take care of the job at hand, and he's got a team to take care of.
Well, from the outside, we don't know what this hiring process or search process entails. But don't you think it's a safe assumption that Hackett and the search committee wouldn't be waiting this out unless they had indications of sincere interest from the Harbaugh camp?
Well, yeah, I mean, and Jim Hackett talked about, his swim lanes, and there's a certain endpoint where, even though they may want a guy, if he hasn't committed at that point, they have to cut ties and go in a different direction. And I think that, I don't think there's any secret that, Harbaugh is the guy that we want, and we're willing to extend that deadline a little bit. But there may have been some type of agreement or some type of handshake that, they've said, hey, we'll wait till the end of the year if you can guarantee us you're going to be there. I'm not saying that's happened, but I do think that there's a strong possibility that that's out there. And let's also talk about the fact that, if Harbaugh is not the guy, there's really only probably 4 or 5 coaches who can really handle a program like Michigan. And because of all that it entails. And those guys are still in bowl games. So while we may be waiting for Jim, if he says no, we still have other options to go to, because we couldn't necessarily take one of the head coaches because they wouldn't leave before their season was over anyway. So everything is still in play, and the NFL season, the bowl season, all ends at about the same time. So I know people are impatient. They want to know what it is or who it's going to be, but it'll sort itself out here within the next probably 8 or 9 days.
Well, this time next week, the smoke should start to clear. We might not know at this time next week, but if it's not Jim Harbaugh, how quickly do you think Michigan has to move in naming a head coach?
I think probably by this time next week, we'll know who it's going to be, whether it's Jim or it's another college coach or another NFL coach, whoever it may be. We'll know by this time next week who it's going to be, because all the seasons are going to be done. And all the candidates that we're looking at will be finished playing their season.
Well, if we do have to go in another direction, do you think the search firm Korn Ferry, along with Mr. Hackett and his staff, has a list of coaches in place who have already expressed serious interest in the job?
Absolutely. I think that there's a list of guys that they'll go down. It's interesting too, because there's been a lot of coaches who you wouldn't necessarily expect that would be interested in moving or changing positions, but all of a sudden when the Michigan job opens up, there's a number of phone calls that you wouldn't expect the guys that are calling that express interest. Now, it doesn't necessarily mean that they're ready to leave, but they want to explore what is going on at Michigan, what if they were to take the job, what would it entail, all the different parameters. But there are some very, very good coaches that have expressed interest.
Well, with us on our Michigan Game Day segment this week is Michigan great Jon Jansen, talking about the thing we're all talking and thinking about, who will be the next head coach for the Michigan Wolverines. John, we don't know who's on the list that Korn Ferry's put together or that Mr. Hackett is looking at. Reports as recently, though, as Sunday mentioned the search has also gauged the interest of several current NFL coaches. So if it's not Jim Harbaugh, who are some of the names out there in the NFL that we might be hearing about?
Well, I apologize for this, but just because of the knowledge that I have of the situation and being involved with Jim Hackett and some of the other guys that are involved in the search, I'm not at liberty right now to really even talk about some of the names that are in there, only because I don't want to be the guy that says something that all of a sudden creates a problem for one of the coaches that we may be looking at, or possibly, a lot of the coaches, one of the things that they will do is use open jobs to get contract extensions at the university or at the pro team that they're at. And if anything leaks out in terms of names or in terms of possibilities, then all of a sudden the leverage that we have is lost. And I'm not going to be that guy.
All right, well, fair enough. Well, all along, Jim Hackett has said he's had a timeline for this process to play out. Given he's never been involved in this kind of endeavor, and you know a lot about this, do you think he's done a good job from what we know with the search to date?
No question. I think he's done a tremendous job. And while he has not searched for a head coach at Michigan, let's not forget he was the CEO of a major corporation and has filled job openings that have come open in his corporation, and has done national searches. So he's got a tremendous background for finding guys and weeding guys out in terms of finding out their intentions, finding out what they're after, finding out what they can do, and also finding out, is this going to be the right fit for our corporation, which is Michigan? Is it going to be the right guy that has, everybody's got a skeleton or two in their closet, but what are they? What would possibly come out if we hire somebody, and all of a sudden, the media is going to do an extensive background search. They're going to find out everything about, whoever that candidate might be. And what we need to know ahead of time, what's out there, what have they done in the past, good or bad. And a lot of times when you take a list of 10 guys, and there may all be great candidates, but maybe there's just something about one that doesn't fit, and they kind of eliminate themselves, and maybe there's one that just isn't ready to make the move, and they kind of eliminate themselves. And I think he's done a great job of weeding the field down to 2 or 3 guys, and everybody is. I can guarantee everybody is going to be very happy with whoever is the next head coach.
Well, last question for you then, John. Even though fans are anxious to get that new head coach on board, they also seem to be worried about the disintegrating 2015 recruiting class and the unknown attrition numbers that could follow. How much of a concern should that really be?
It shouldn't be a concern at all. And while there is great value in the year leading up to the first Wednesday in February, which is the official signing date, commitments are made and broken and changed and on everything up until that point. And there's a lot of factors that are involved in that. But I can tell you that whoever is the next head coach at Michigan, when they're announced, there's going to be an initial excitement. There's going to be an initial splash. And say it's Jim Harbaugh. These guys only need, there's going to be 3 or 4 weekends that they can get out, or 4 weeks that they can get out into the high schools. They can get everything that they need to be done in that time. And there's going to be kids that are committed to other universities who say, you know what, that program, and I can see where they're going. I really want to play for that coach. They'll break their commitments and come back to Michigan. It may be a guy that was originally committed here is decommitted and could even have committed somewhere else. A lot of those guys will come back, and we'll get all the commitments that we need. It's going to be a great recruiting class. I'm not worried about it myself. And I don't think anybody else should be either.
Well, there you go, Michigan fans. Just hang in there for another 5 to 7 days, and it's going to be an exciting 7 days and holiday period with a lot of rumors and speculation out there, but we'll find out soon enough. Our guest here on the show today on our Michigan Game Day segment has been Michigan great Jon Jansen, and as always, John, it's a pleasure to have you on the show. And I'm sure we'll get you back on soon after the holidays to talk about that new hire and what's happening in Michigan football. Until then, have a wonderful Merry Christmas.
Thanks a lot. You guys too, and Go Blue. We'll look forward to a great new year.
Go Blue. Right around the corner is Michigan Quick Hits as we wrap it up for another week here on the Michigan Man Podcast on GBMW Go Blue, Michigan Wolverine. On Wolverine Quick Hits today, freshman Ricky Doyle scored a career-high 16 points, and the University of Michigan men's basketball team shot 60.7% from the floor in the first half as the Wolverines wrapped up the non-conference portion of their regular season slate with a 72-56 win over Coppin State on Monday night at Chrysler Center. With the win, Michigan snapped a 4-game losing streak and improved its home record to 6-3. Doyle was 6 for 7 from the floor and added 5 boards. Sophomore Zach Irvin had 13 points, including 3 three-pointers, and set a career high with 7 rebounds. Classmate Derek Walton Jr. had 9 points and dished out 9 assists, a career high for the Detroit native. Freshman Cameron Chapman joined Walton with 9 assists, while junior Karis LeVert and freshman Mark Denal had 8 points apiece. LeVert also pulled down 8 boards as Michigan out-rebounded the Eagles 43-31. Michigan opens Big Ten play on Tuesday against Illinois. Tip-off is slated for 3 p.m. at Chrysler Center, and the game will be televised on ESPN2. Michigan enters Big Ten play with a record of 7-5. Women's basketball wrapped up the non-conference portion of the regular season with an 81-52 win over Eastern Michigan on Monday afternoon in front of 3,948 fans at Chrysler Center. The Wolverines forced 27 Eagle turnovers and had 18 steals on the day for their 8th win of the season. Senior Saisha Gori recorded her 3rd straight double-double as she had 14 points and 10 boards in 22 minutes. She was one of 4 Wolverines to score in double figures, as freshman Caitlin Flaherty led the Maize and Blue with 17 points on 6 of 11 shooting. Sophomore Sierra Thompson scored 15 points, including 3 three-pointers, and senior Nicole Elmblad added 10 points to go along with 4 rebounds and 3 assists. Sophomore Danielle Williams had 6 of Michigan's 18 steals, and senior Shannon Smith led U of M with 5 assists while adding 9 points. U of M kicks off conference play on Sunday at Wisconsin. Tip is scheduled for 3 p.m. Central Standard Time, and the game can be seen on the Big Ten Network. The Wolverines are 8-3 overall heading into Big Ten play. Hockey kicks off action in the 50th Annual Great Lakes Invitational Tournament by taking on Michigan Tech on Sunday at 3:30 p.m. The winner will move on to the championship game Monday to play the winner of the Michigan State-Ferris State game at the Joe Louis Arena. Michigan goes into tournament action this week with a record of 8 wins and 6 losses. It's going to be a busy week, not only because of Christmas and all that goes along with that, but by this time next week we fully expect to know who the next head coach will be. That means the news and rumors will be churning for a few days more. To keep up with everything Maize and Blue, visit www.gbmwolverine.com and become a member today. You'll get emails when a story is published and can visit the message board anytime to see what other Michigan fans think about the latest news. Stay in the Wolverine loop this holiday season. Visit www.gbmwolverine.com and sign up for free membership today. If you get the show from iTunes, please take a minute to rate or review the show. If you listen from your laptop or desktop, sign up for free weekly delivery from iTunes. Our show app is now available in the iTunes Store, the podcast box from Amazon.com, and the Windows 8 App Store. You can also find us on TuneIn Radio and Stitcher Radio on demand. Next week, I plan on publishing the show on Tuesday afternoon or Wednesday morning. We might push it back to later in the day on Wednesday if we have a new coach named, because we're not sure when the introductory presser will be. At any rate, it will be an interesting week, and the waiting game should finally be over. In the meantime, I wish each and every one of you a very Merry Christmas. I thank you for listening each week and for the feedback you send me regarding the show. As I've said before so often, while putting the show together each week takes up a chunk of my time, it is a labor of love. I hope this Christmas Day finds you surrounded by friends and family, and with all of the people you love. I'd like to make special mention of the men and women who serve our country every day, but will be far from home protecting our freedom this holiday season. Merry Christmas to all of our military who listen on the Armed Forces Internet service. It always warms my heart when I get an email from a serviceman or woman telling me how much they enjoy keeping up on their Wolverines while so far from home and in harm's way. God bless each and every one of you. That will do it for this week's show. We know next week big news is on the way, so until then, enjoy Christmas Day, and don't forget to join me again next week for our final show of what has been an interesting and, yes, frustrating 2014 for all Michigan Wolverine fans. I'm your host, Mike Fitzpatrick. Merry Christmas, everyone, and as always, go blue. Thanks for listening to the Michigan Man podcast on GBMW Go Blue Michigan Wolverine. You can find us on the web at www.gbmwolverine.com. That's www.gbmwolverine.com. For audio posts or other fan feedback, please call our listener line at 313-263-4842. That's 313-263-4842. Email fan feedback to the Michigan Man Podcast at yahoo.com. That's the Michigan Man Podcast at yahoo.com. The Michigan Man Podcast on GBMW Go Blue Michigan Wolverine is produced at the studios of Robin Lynn Productions, Allen Park, Michigan. The Michigan Man Podcast is not affiliated with the University of Michigan. Go Blue!